I've always been a strong believer that like plant psychedelics play an integral role for thousands of years in our interactions with these beings, which is the way it's always been. And I have a two-part question. First part of the question, number one, have you ever wrote any Angels and Airwaves songs on any of these plant psychedelics? And number two, what are your thoughts about how we use those things to interact with superior beings?
Well, that's a bitching question. I have not written any songs on psychedelics. I have done psilocybin, like microdosing stuff. I believe that it's the ayahuasca, DMT, psilocybin stuff is super, super interesting. And, you know, they're obviously, as you probably know, it's being studied at so many universities right now. It's curing schizophrenia and depression, anxiety. It's doing a lot of stuff like that. So it's not addictive. It's not toxic. So it's kind of same thing as like weed. It's like they kind of find out like, well, maybe this should be legal, and it grows and it's a mushroom, you know? But in any case, I think that, you know, and then if you look at people that take ayahuasca or smoke DMT, they have a lot of the exact same experiences, sometimes a little bit different, but similar in architecture as people that have UFO encounters or alien abductions and this and that. You know, I tend to think that, you know, when you take these drugs that are natural, that grow on plants, and you're right, like down in the Amazon and stuff, they've been feeding ayahuasca and DMT to like babies. When they come out of the womb, they'll give them a teaspoon of ayahuasca. It's crazy. And they've been using it as medicine rather than you're like, you get cancer and do chemo. They'll be like, no, if you have cancer, you take ayahuasca and you go into your consciousness and figure out how that cancer manifested from something that you're carrying and stuff. Well, they did studies and they knew more people, and they're actually like being cured by doing this stuff. They're facing their fears and whatever. It's really, really, really interesting. So in any case, where I've basically have come to understanding how potentially it all works, it seems to me that when you take the psychedelics, you're able to see more frequencies. You're able to see dimensionally. You're able to see other things that exist either near you or as you travel into a stronger form or a higher form of consciousness. And then, and at first you'll pass, you know, artificial intelligence, creatures that are really far advanced, doing jobs, doing things to you or whatever. But those creatures seem to lack emotion and don't really have the ability to transfer past a certain membrane where people kind of go into more bigger consciousness, bliss, those types of things. Sure. So, and these are just based off of the books and the studies and the PhDs that are like literally writing this shit down at Ivy League universities, you know, like, you know, why are everyone seeing the same things and this and that? So I tend to think that it's really fascinating that the height of even alien abductions take place around 3 a.m. But your body produces DMT and you have the most of it in your body at 3 a.m. It's in your spinal cord or something like that. So I just find all those things really interesting, that there's something happening with consciousness that when you take these natural hallucinogenics, it allows you to see and experience in the same way as somebody that's just like in their bed at 3 a.m. and they feel or hear something. So I think we're going to learn a lot more about it. And I think we're going to find ways with medicines like this and genetics to start opening up our antenna, which essentially our mind is just an antenna. You know, our whole body is just resonating to a specific thing. We're kind of like a radio receiver, you know, and so I think that we're going to advance and be able to have access to see those types of things in a lot easier, in a much more easier way over time. We're getting deep on this stuff. I forgot that people are actually listening, but that's my take. And so I appreciate the question. It's fascinated me over the past year. I spent a lot of time actually reading and studying this stuff because I think it's really interesting. So
sure, man.
That's it.
I thought it'd be a good. That's a vision.
Michael's heaping spoonful had flipped my consciousness out way beyond life, out into the whirling dance of pure energy, where nothing existed except whirring vibrations. And each illusory form was simply a different frequency, a momentary stage prop for the great theater of illusion, continually changing. It was the most shattering experience of my life.
Psychedelics are interesting because when people do ayahuasca or DMT, they tend to see the same things as people have alien abductions. And what they all describe, and it comes through a little bit different for each person, but it's generally the same. Like it's like saying like, oh, I saw this thing that people live in. It's got wood and it's got this roof made out of like other materials, and inside it's nice. And someone else goes, yeah, I saw something that people live in. It's got glass and it's got a flat roof and they live inside. They're all houses, right? But they're all basically the same kind of thing. And that's kind of what people are doing with psychedelics, where they're seeing the same building blocks, but they're a little bit different each time. But it generally revolves around going into a realm where they see AI creatures that are inhibited from passing through a membrane. But if you go through there, these things are all around you. But if you let go of the ego, then you can pass through that membrane, and it's like limitless, unboundless love and light. So what's interesting is if you read the ancient religious texts, there were angels, fallen angels, that were jealous of God's love for mankind. Well, what does that mean? Well, what do they have that we don't have? Well, they created the angels, or the angels were created, and then mankind was created after. But we were better somehow, that they were pissed. They were jealous of us, of God's love. Well, what's love? Love is like, it's not like, oh, I love this woman, but kind of, because when you love somebody, you want them, you want to merge with them, you want to fuck their brains out, or you want to be around them all the time. You just can't get enough. It's that feeling where you fall in love, where it's like an obsession. That's two things coming together. So if we trade out that word love for like, unified mind, unified consciousness, like we're all humans with a receiver and we're tuning in to one radio station. We're all from the same fucking place, but our ego that's created over just living here makes us feel as an independent person. But we're not, because what they learned at the CIA, and my partner at To the Stars, Dr. Pudov, did this. He created the Psychic Spy program, which was literally when the government was discovering consciousness and how to use it. So basically how this all ties together is what it tends to look like is the universe is somewhat a duality in nature, where you have like matter and antimatter, or you have light, you have dark, but really it's one huge ocean of thought. And it's like, picture like all of the space in the universe is just one big frequency of thought. And almost like you have a shoebox of light and the same shoebox of pitch black. One's unified mind and one's the opposite, entropy, no mind, individuality, or something. And then you shove those two boxes together, the light dims and the blackness goes into it, and all of a sudden pop, 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 you have these little stars that pop out, these little dots of light, because you merge those two things into the same location. So it's not pure light, but it's also not pure dark. It's like kind of poking through. And the way I describe it is, now you have in a three-dimensional space kind of physical matter that looks to be like the event horizon between two different fields of thought. It's all one thought. It's almost like, I want to murder somebody. That's a low frequency. I want to be Gandhi. That's a high frequency. And you're a radio receiver tuning into the force, the light or the dark side of the force. But what's the force? It binds the universe together. Well, what's God? It's like unified mind. It's light. It's the creator. It's the creation, but it has to evolve. It has to grow. So it looks like physical matter and mankind is literally like where the war is happening between, it's the yin and the yang symbol, the black and the white, that are coupled together, constantly trying to figure itself out. And where this all comes down to is it's looking like when you take ayahuasca or a lot of psilocybin or like one of those things, like you basically, it just turns your radio receiver into hi-fi. And now it's not AM radio anymore. It's like, oh shit, this is satellite connection. And so all of a sudden, boom, now you're able to see more frequencies than your eyes normally would do. You don't need your eyes, it's your brain, right? Because you're already in the field, you're in the ocean. You don't need your eyes to do it. It's like you just need your body is one giant antenna, your rib cage, your arms, your brain, like the whole thing's an antenna. And so this like hypes up your antenna. And then all of a sudden, what do you see? You see a bunch of creatures that are very old, very powerful, that are more synthetic, that are AI, or that are individual. They don't have the feeling, the emotions. They don't have the love, the capability of love. They don't have the capability as a soul that understands what love is. And love is what created the universe. But let's just take that word love out and just say unified mind.
Yeah.
And so I think like what we're going to realize as we discover ways to supercharge our brains, we're going to start to see some of those dimensional realities all around us. It's the same thing that people, you know, a lot of times people that have wounds from alien abductions match wounds from demonic possession. It's all the same shit, you know, where you have these things that are just out of our visual perception, but are kind of here that can either fuck with us from a distance or create displacement craft and come over and fuck with us, you know, directly, you know. Either way, it all looks to be the same thing that's talked about everywhere. And whether you smoke ayahuasca or drink it or whatever, or you meditate and see it, or you pray, or you fucking create a spaceship where you can change the frequency and just kind of materialize in and out of different time, it's all the same stuff. It's basically, it's just the workings of the universe between one thing where we're all the same and we break off in pieces to evolve and learn so this God can grow, versus over here synthetic life forms that can't do that, that are jealous of that and hate us for it or something. We're trying to be a part of it. And that's why I think all these this is the missing glue for humans.